Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Lackey, the POA Board President, and this special call town hall, while it would normally be Matt's purview to run it, because it's got legal stuff in it, we're going to let you guys enjoy, and I'm going to try to keep lids on it. Today we have our attorney, actually a former TPUC member, and our attorney representing us in our TPUC status, Henry Walker, and he is one of the highest regarded TPUC lawyers around, one of the top two from what I've heard, and he seems to have presented himself that way with his actions with the board so far. So without any further ado, are we good to go, Kevin? Can you test your mic for us, Henry?
This is Henry Walker.
Quite well, thank you.
Is Kevin with us also?
Yes.
Good.
No, not Kevin Stevens, no. Wrong Kevin.
Oh, okay.
You got to elaborate on Kevin's. We were just having that discussion.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike, for that introduction. My name is Henry Walker. I'm a lawyer in Nashville. For a number of years, I was the general counsel of the Tennessee. Back then, it was the Tennessee Public Service Commission. Today, it's the Tennessee Public Utility Commission, but same agency. And after I left there as general counsel, I've spent most of my career practicing utility law, mostly in front of the commission. I got a call from your board, from Kevin Stevens, that you all were having I knew you were having a case in front of the commission. The case was whether or not Teleco is subject to the jurisdiction of the Tennessee Public Utility Commission. And I read some of the pleadings. I read the hearing officer's initial order, and I talked to Kevin Stevens about it, and he said the board would like to hire me to sort of figure out the best course of action. And to put it in a nutshell, Teleco is currently a party in front of the commission, and the issue is whether or not the commission has jurisdiction over Teleco. Even though you all have been around for 45 years and nobody's regulated you, they changed the law a few years ago because of an unrelated issue. And because of that change in the law, it's possible that Teleco Village could be under the jurisdiction of the Public Utility Commission. And I told Kevin that the way the statute is written, I thought that if y'all continued to litigate that issue, you would probably lose. The statute says the commission does not regulate homeowner associations whose membership is limited to owners of lots in residential subdivisions. And because of the fact that you all have literally a handful of commercial lots within Teleco Village, a literal reading of the statute would say that you are subject to the regulation of the Public Utility Commission. Now, as I said, I'm very familiar with the commission. I worked there for 13 years. Most of my legal practice involves representing consumers and utilities in front of the commission. The commission was not designed and not intended to regulate an entity like Teleco Village. It was designed and intended to regulate utilities that are owned by stockholders, like Piedmont Gas in Nashville, or Chattanooga Gas in Chattanooga, or Tennessee American Water in Chattanooga. It's frankly a heavy-handed form of regulation, which you need to have when you have a stockholder-owned monopoly utility that operates, and most states, well, every state has a public utility commission. So in talking it over with Mr. Stevens and Mr. Lackey, I think I certainly advised that y'all would be spending a great deal of money if you were subject to regulation by the Public Utility Commission. They have an annual inspection fee that you have to pay every year. Teleco would pay between $32,000 and $40,000 in inspection fees every year, whether you ever file anything in front of the commission. If you ever wanted to change rates, you have to go in front of the commission. It's a trial type hearing. You generally have to hire an accountant, perhaps an economist, perhaps an engineer, and certainly a lawyer. And the rate cases at the commission generally take a minimum of 6 months. So at any event, again, this is the agency where I used to work. I know them well. They do good work. They're good, honest people. But it's not really intended to regulate a place like Tellico Village. So I talked to the board about, well, you know, maybe we can pass a private act that would make clear that Tellico Village is not subject to regulation by the Public Utility Commission. And the board said, you know, we agree with you. We don't want to be regulated by the commission, but there are a lot of people in Tellico Village who very properly and understandably feel we need to have some protection, some place to go if the board abuses its discretion. Utility rates are supposed to be just and reasonable. That's been the law for 1,000 years. They're supposed to be non-discriminatory. And without regulation, your only alternative would be to go to court. Well, I talked to them about an alternative, which is the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation, a wholly separate board, which is under the jurisdiction of the Tennessee Comptroller. This board, very different from the Public Utility Commission. This board was created to handle complaints of customers who live in utility districts. And to regulate utility districts if they set rates that are discriminatory or if they charge for water and sewer and use the money for something else. Now, in 2024, this Public Utility Board, the Board of Utility Regulation in the Comptroller's Office, they expanded their jurisdiction. They now also have control over municipal utilities. For example, they have control of the Loudoun Utility District. They have control over the Tellico Service Area District. They now have regulatory control over all municipal utilities in Tennessee. But it's a very different form of regulation than the Public Utility Commission. In a municipal utility, just like Tellico, you know, you vote and elect the people who set the rates. Well, what happens if there's an abuse by the people setting rates? Well, the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation has a complaint process. It's informal, it's inexpensive, and you can file a complaint that the rates of your utility are unjust, unreasonable, or discriminatory. And the board will order its staff to investigate. There may be an informal hearing in Nashville, and then they will make a decision, and that decision can be enforced by an order of the court. The board doesn't exercise jurisdiction unless there's a complaint or unless the utility's annual report shows that they're underwater. Believe it or not, most of the utility board's business consists of ordering municipal utilities to raise rates. A lot of municipal utilities don't want to raise rates, and unfortunately, the maintenance suffers. So if the audited financials show that the municipal utility is underwater, the board will call them in front of the board and say, we're directing you to raise rates. But they also, of course, handle issues of, as I said, unreasonable or unjust rates or discriminatory rates or taking utility revenues and misapplying. So what I did, and the board, I discussed this with your board, is we have drafted a private act that would put Tellico Village, first of all, it would clarify that Tellico Village is not under the jurisdiction of the Tennessee Public Utility Commission. And second, the private act would say that for the limited purpose of the regulation of water and sewer services, Tellico Village would be under the jurisdiction of the Comptroller's Office, specifically the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation. They call it T-Board, T-B-O-U-R, Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation. There is a slide that's been prepared to show you the private act that I have drafted and that the board has seen. Mike, I don't know if you can put that on the screen or not, but we're going
Beth,
to,
could we
we're
advance that?
actually,
Could we advance the
Okay.
screen plate? There we go. One more.
and I think that it kind of speaks for itself, the whereas clauses, and it's pretty short and simple. Says to make clear, you're not under the jurisdiction of the Public Utility Commission, but you will be under the jurisdiction of the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation. We've had tentative conversations with your state representative. We're having a conversation with your state senator this afternoon. And we don't anticipate any issues. So far, frankly, everybody I've talked to seems to think this is a good idea. Everybody seems to agree that Tellico Village is not an investor-owned utility. It really doesn't need to be regulated by the Public Utility Commission, but like a small municipal utility, and that's really kind of what you are, it's good to have the oversight of the Comptroller's Office and knowing that this board is there to handle complaints about rates or misapplication of funds, whatever you have it. By the way, this has nothing to do with environmental issues. The quality of your water system and your sewer system are regulated by TDEC, the Department of Environment and Conservation. That won't change. Nothing about this changes that. This is only about rate making. So, thank you. Thanks to the board for hiring me to do this. And I'm now happy to do whatever Mike wants to do next.
Thank you, Henry. At this time, I'll open up the microphone to the audience. If there's any questions, please be polite, please be respectful. We've got a pretty good crowd, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Introduce yourself when you get up. Turn the mic on, please. Perfect.
Okay. Hi, my name's Dave Landrum. I live in Tokla. From what I see today, this looks very good. But it does not go back and address the past abuses by the POA board who have overcharged on water. It does not tell us that the current water rate that was just implemented is fair and equitable. We've just been told it's a 19% reduction on the base rate. At what point will the board go back and say, this is what should have been done, and then make the proper addressing of the issues? The POA members, in my opinion, have been overcharged millions of dollars where the money has gone elsewhere in the POA for non-water or sewer investments. Thank you. Yeah.
The current board, there's only one person on here that was actually in it before. The current board is looking to wrap this up and get the either under T-Board, TDEC, or whatever, TPUC, and at that time we will revisit those rates and make sure that in case there's any penalties, we have the monies in the accounts, in the proper accounts, to reimburse everybody if we can. There's some challenges in that space because we had some landlords reduce renters' rent $80. How do we give the money to the landlord when the actual check came in from the renter? We've had people move out, new people move in. We've had lots get burdened with it. There's an accounting process that we have not developed yet. We would like to review that, and if and when the opportunity presents itself, we'll come back at you with a plan. Is that fair?
Who's going to audit it? I have no trust of the POA past board, POA professional members, because they've lacked candor. The new board has to establish candor with the members that have trust. So who will audit that says that the numbers that you come up with are accurate, everything's going back the way it should have been rather than the way it was done?
Well, right now, we don't even have a plan, so it's kind of hard to audit it. We got to put the plan together, and then we'll put the audit together. Is that fair?
Well, Dave, let me say that once you're under the jurisdiction of the comptroller's office, you will be required to hire an outside auditor and to file an annual audit with the comptroller's office, which they will review with a fine-tooth comb. And the books will have to be kept in accordance with GASB, government accounting standards. And I obviously can't speak to what has happened in the past, but if this private act passes this session, and we hope that it will, you'll be filing audited financials for 2026.
But the law does not require the board or the POA to go back and correct past actions that were against the covenants. In my humble opinion, the $80 was charged against only occupied houses and not lot owners. It was written that way. But the way it was written, it said the lots were not affected, only the houses. Did I misread
It
that?
might have been written that way. I don't know how it was written, but I've had contact with people who were not hooked up to the system that once they sold the lot paid the $80.
Okay, once they sold the lot. But they were never, if you didn't have an account with the water department, you weren't charged the $80. For example, the lot across the street from me was never charged the $80.
I'm ignorant in that space. I don't know.
Well, that's something we need to, when you start saying we have to check these issues out, it doesn't make sense when you got to have it exact.
I agree, but it's not going to be decided at this meeting.
Okay, I agree. I just want to make sure that there is a plan coming.
Mike, I can answer the lot question. So the way it was put into place is that since they didn't have a utility account, they couldn't be charged, but they would have to pay a catch-up fee for whenever they sold the lot or permitted it for construction. Whatever everybody else had paid to that date would be what they owed to be caught up, so it was fair and equitable amongst everyone.
The POA has records of who paid on the lot, so that should not be a deterrent from getting this satisfaction and resolution. Thank you.
Hi, Doug Schutzel, Mialakwa. I think you're heading down a reasonable path here, and I spent 45 years of my career in the regulated utility industry, stockholder, owned various gas, electric utilities, so I can certainly sympathize with the desire to avoid full-scale regulation. But whether you can support this or not is going to be determined on how much protection we have. It would be interesting to know if there's a complaint, does the public TBOR, is it shall investigate or may investigate? Those type of things. Also, when I moved in here, I read the covenants and restrictions and And I believed that we were somewhat protected by those covenants and restrictions, that you couldn't willy-nilly raise rates and use it for other things. So I think it would go a long way toward getting support for this if you would, in companion with this, propose a common language, straightforward. The board shall not have the power to use water and sewer funds for any other purpose other than for water and sewer. And that would go a long way to, and maybe it's belt and suspenders, but I like belt and suspenders.
No, it's pretty simple. Right there, the fifth line down, Doug, can spend water and sewer funds only on water and sewer.
Aye.
And can spend water and sewer funds only on water and sewer. That's the law. And if we get saddled up with T-Bor, that's what we're required to do. And that's actually in our utility permit now. So,
It didn't stop the last board, did it?
well, that's the reason we got elected.
I understand that, but there's still some of those folks around, and why I voted for you all, and I may
I'll get
trust
even with
you
you for
all.
that.
I don't necessarily trust who will be here in 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. There's always the risk that other unreasonable people will come in and replace you.
We agree wholeheartedly, but the act clearly defines that it can only be spent for water and sewer purposes, and there's a hearing only if customers make the complaint. And if you guys make the complaint, the T-Bor will investigate us, and they actually can require the removal of a board member. That's their authority. If a board member steps out of line and the future boards do something untoward, God forbid, there's an avenue there for T-Bor to remove them.
Henry,
last line.
if you could make the statement that on a single complaint that T-Bor will initiate an investigation, I would appreciate it.
All right. By the way, Doug, which utility did you work for?
Lots of them, Consolidated Natural Gas, Transmission, Louisville Gas and Electric, among a couple of them.
You're right. You know state regulation inside and out.
And FERC.
Yeah. Oh, God. Talk about a bureaucratic mess. I'm looking at the statute now, and Doug, you're welcome to look it up. Basically, what the board does with every complaint is they refer it to their staff. And the staff will investigate. And sometimes the staff will say, this complaint has no merit and there's no reason for the board to hear it. Other times, the staff says this complaint has merit and the staff will try to mediate it, work it out. If they can't work it out, there's a hearing in front of T-Bor. I can't tell you there'll be a hearing on every complaint. I can tell you that on every complaint, they will direct their staff to look at it. And again, that if you want to look up the statutes, you're welcome to. It's TCA 7-82-101, the Tennessee Board of Utility Regulation. They have very broad authority. Let me give you another example. They will require those guys who are sitting up in front of you to go to training to learn how to run and operate utilities. And if they don't go to the training, or if they disregard a board order, as was said earlier, T-Bor has the power to remove them. So it's a very broad, the breadth of their jurisdiction is not all that different than the breadth of a state public utility commission. It's just that they act on complaints, and they don't have to approve it every time you change rates.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Wolf in Toqua, and I'd like to really thank you for doing this and hiring Mr. Walker from what I've seen, because this is a breath of fresh air to see you sitting here talking. And and actually getting a reaction from the attorney that we're hiring. This is amazing. Like Doug, my background was working with utilities, interstate and natural gas, and I can tell you that this is a breath of fresh air. It's a win-win for everyone because we have to submit our costs, as Mr. Walker said, once a year. And just doing that helps lower costs because most utility managers, when they know their costs are going to be reviewed and audited, are a little more careful. Secondly, the rates, we've now, residents, if this is approved, would have an option to contest a rate. Again, that's a win-win for ratepayers and the residents of Tellico. And third, it guarantees that our funds are segregated and not commingled with other funds within Tellico Village. Wow, those are three big wins if we're successful at this, and I applaud you for doing it. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mark Stickle, Tenacity. Just a real quick question for Henry. This sounds like, like everybody said, pretty good idea on the financial side. Henry, does being under that aspect of it with this act, does it change anything with respect to how the village manages the mechanical and the purchases and the design of the system and all that thing? Are there any fingers that come down that drive anything, or is this purely financial?
It's purely financial. The T-board is only concerned if you are in the red.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I thought so, but I'd like that
Yeah,
clarification.
TDEC will obviously make sure that you maintain the system properly, meet all the environmental tests and everything. But T-board is well, I say that if you start having a lot of water leaks, T-board also will tell you to fix it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Oh, Mark, sorry.
I'll make it easy, another Mark. Mark Warner from Mialacqua. Although this doesn't seem to be the whole enchilada, it certainly is probably 3/4 of it, which is what a number of people have already said. With one question that wasn't clear to me, what was T-board's responsibility when a utility like ours, POA utility, decides to invest in a large project for the water and maintenance, water and sewer system? Do they have any kind of recourse, or do they come in and check to see if that actually makes sense? Do they do anything of that sort?
Generally speaking, I think that the only thing that they might, well, generally speaking, no. If you decide to, redo your wastewater system or your collection system or your pumps or anything like that, they don't review your construction plans. In the Public Utility Commission, capital investments often require commission approval. T-board does not do that. The only reason T-board might get involved would be, and this is a high bar to jump over, would be if the expenditure was so inappropriate that it would be called imprudent. Prudence is a requirement, just like just and reasonable rates. You have to have prudent expenses. And that's been the law for a long time. It's hard to show that a utility expense is imprudent. It can be done. It usually comes up when, AEP wants to build another nuclear reactor and charge the ratepayers. But my guess is anything that your board would do to improve the system, T-board would probably say, that's fine.
Afternoon. Jim Martin to Motley. Just a quick question. So this act is a go forward. Normally, there's no retrospective look. Is the AG aware of what's happening with this, and is this just putting a pin in it, and will it end I don't know if you call it a suit. Will it end the action that is currently in place?
But yes, I have had, informal discussions with the staff at the Public Utilities Commission. I've had informal discussions with the staff at the AG's office. They were speaking only for themselves, not for their bosses, but they all felt that this was an off-ramp to the current litigation, and it was a good direction to go. If this bill is introduced, I believe that the commission will put the litigation on hold to see if the bill passes. And that way you won't be, well, sorry, Kevin, spending any more money on Kevin litigating the case. But at the AG's office, again, they thought this was a good result, and they liked the idea of going to T-Board instead of just letting the board be completely unregulated.
Excellent. Thank you all very much.
Like a bad penny. Given that T-Board will not or does not do anything regarding whether a utility wants to improve its system or not, this is more for the board that's sitting here. I think it behooves the board to take a look at our covenants and restrictions to say that, if we're going to spend this kind of money, maybe we ought to run it by the residents. We've had a number of, in the past 2 years, a number of large expenditures. One is Tenassi, and then, of course, we're looking at the original TAP program and the MPS, the main pump station that's being built today. Before we spend that kind of money, maybe we ought to have something in the covenants and restrictions that says the board can only spend X on an asset. Other than that, it would have to go to the residents for a vote. We have to have some sort of cap on this. So,
Mike, can I chime in on that for a second? I'm going to ask Henry a question that relates to what you're saying, Mark. I'm speaking only for myself here, it takes the whole board to speak for the board. But amending the covenants, as you probably all know, is an extremely heavy lift. It takes a majority of all the lots. Don't hold your breath, okay? I personally think we need to do some cleaning up of the covenants, and down the road, I will advocate anyway that we should look at how we might be able to do that. But for me, part of what's good about this approach is it gets protection in place now by going under regulation by T-Board. You have to segregate water sewer money. You can't spend it on anything except water sewer. Mm-hmm. That's a huge step forward from where we are. And, as has been said here, you're breaking the law if you go outside of that, and T-Board has sanctions they can put in place if that. But Henry, one question for you. You mentioned earlier, and I think I understand this from reading some of what you pointed us at, one main thing that T-Board does look at is whether utilities are becoming insolvent or, financially unsound and so on. And since they would see our audited water sewer financials every year, is it possible that if that audit showed a kind of spending, since we can only spend inside the water sewer money, if it showed expenditures that could go in the direction of making us maintaining that unsound, would they chime in on that?
Actually, they do that a lot. The current, I don't know if it's in the rules or I think it's in the statute. If your books show that your water or sewer system is in the red 2 years in a row, they'll call you in front of the board and say what's going on and get you to explain why you shouldn't be ordered to raise rates. So 2 years in a row of running a deficit gets you hauled to Nashville.
So Mark, I think that's sort of a backdoor to what you're asking about.
It kind of is. As I said before when I was up here, I think this gets us 3/4 of the way there. The other quarter for protecting the residents of Tellico Village is, in fact, the amount of money that can be spent on an asset or on a project or a program. And right now, it seems like that's very loose. And it needs to have either more meat put on that in the covenants and restrictions. And I'm sorry, but with something this important, David, the residents would need to be involved. And yes, it might be a heavy lift, but there are many ways to do it today that are a lot easier than what the covenants and restrictions call out. And so it's like doing a survey. We've got all kinds of companies now that do third-party surveys, and they're very good at it. So that's the one weakness in this whole thing that I see, is that it doesn't protect us from a $37 million program that we might not need.
In that space, Mark, it also doesn't protect us from a $12 million Tenassi, but the TPUC wouldn't either. I agree with your purview in that space. The bylaws can be changed by this board, but any subsequent board could change them right back. So the CNRs might be the way to go. I haven't figured that out yet. We'll have discussions in that space, but you got to remember that PUC wouldn't regulate Tenassi either. And so we've frozen all spending. We didn't follow our purchasing policies in-house. We didn't have 3 estimates. We didn't have a review. The board's trying to bring us up to speed on our policies, and we're trying to drag this place into the 21st century as best we can. But you got to give us a minute.
Hey, we have a question online, Michael. This is from Mike Lynch. He said, could the private bill we introduced include a section that establishes a mechanism via which TV complaints would first present their complaints to the POA board?
That's a very good point. Fortunately, this TBOR statute says we won't hear a complaint from a regulated utility unless you go to the utility first. So that is taken care of. Anyone who has a complaint about the rates first would have to bring it to the Tellico board. And if they don't get satisfaction, then you take your complaint to T-Board.
Hi, Mike Blackwell from Milwaukee. 2 quick questions for point of clarification. One of them is, as we circle back to what feels like where we were before with some guardrails, is there any language specific to restricting the frequency with which the board can adjust rates for water and sewer? I mean, I'm just a little concerned, as I think some other residents are, that we could become spectrum.
No, that's a fair challenge. In that space, if the residents feel that we've raised them incorrectly, the process was just outlined. You bring it to the board, say, I feel you raised them incorrectly, and if we say, no, we didn't, and here's why, you can take that to T-Board. And then they can come in and force us to go to class or actually remove a sitting board member.
So under the my current understanding of this new procedure is that if you wanted to raise water and sewer rates every other month, you could do that. There's no guardrails for that.
T-Board is the guardrail.
If a complaint emanates from here, but
Yes.
absent that, you could, if you chose to do so, raise the water rates every other month.
I would venture to say that the villagers would be up in arms over that.
I would venture
And
to say that's true as well, but I'm trying to be proactive rather than reactive.
That's fair. We can't guarantee what future boards will do. Right now, I have no desire to do that, and I think Judy would probably shoot me for going back in and having to reload the rates in everybody's deal. So that's kind of a self-defense mechanism for me. I don't like to get shot. It's not my fave 5.
Well, it's also, sometimes human nature is to look for the easiest off-ramp, and when you have revenue issues, that could be an easy off-ramp. I'm just raising the
I cannot
question.
transfer funds from water and sewer to anything else other than water and sewer.
But if you have a revenue problem related to water and sewer, that's an easy off-ramp. Frequent changes could be an easy off-ramp.
I can speculate this to ad nauseum, but there is a protection in there for you through your appeals to the board and to T-Board.
Okay, so my other question is this. If I read it, we went kind of quickly through the slides that are the proclamation, but I believe it said that Tellico Village POA will purchase water from the local utility board, and they will resell it to the members of the association. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so my question is this. In the process of purchasing the water from the local utility board and then reselling it to the members of the association, is there any value added relative to the members of the association? Because if there's not, it's a little hard to justify upcharging for that transfer from Loudon Utilities to Tellico Village to us. That's my only
But
question.
you gotta the only upcharge is you gotta maintain the distribution system. You know, you gotta test the water, you gotta make sure your pipes are working well. You've probably got some pumps that you own within Tellico Village. So, I mean, you're a distribution company, not a wholesale company. And there are lots of public utilities that buy water from a wholesaler and distribute it to their customers. And you're exactly right. The upcharge is the cost of distribution. It's sending out bills, collecting the bills, you know, dealing with being a retail provider.
There's a lot that goes on in there. You got meter readers. I mean, what's our public works staff, Matt?
Water and sewer staff, I'm sorry. Water and sewer staff, I think, stands at about 15, if you don't count me.
So, I mean, they fix the lines when they're broke. They operate the pumps, operate the valves, make sure the water chlorination's at the right level, maintain the tank up at the Chota Hills, make sure the meters that we've got are accurate, change out the meters. We're going through a process right now. How many meters are you changing out this year?
750, 800.
That are going from the old analog meters to the new digital meters that are more accurate and that they can drive by. They don't have to get out of the truck and be meter readers. There's a whole bunch of underlying processes that aren't apparent to everyone.
I know. I'm sorry. You know, this 3-minute thing really has me screwed up. You know, I have to keep coming up. But I am getting exercise that I normally wouldn't get, so what the hell. One of the things, Mr. Walker, you mentioned is the cost of being under TPUC. And you mentioned that it roughly $45,000 annually. So we understand.
That's the inspection fee.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with the monthly filings that would be required when, you have to make monthly filings whether you increase rates or not.
Okay.
If you increase rates, you have to file permission for a rate increase. And that's a trial type hearing.
That's a labor-related thing, that we'd have to have somebody on site to do that, so.
Right.
The $45,000 a year, so we understand the cost. When people tell me this is gonna cost a lot of money, I always say, how much? What's it mean? Well, if it's $45,000 a year, it means $6.92. That's the, if it's $100,000 a year, all right, then it would be, I'll do this in my head real fast, about $18 per household per year. That's at 100,000. The thing is, what are you trading off for T-Bor versus TPUC? Now, understand that when you have a lot of really tough hurdles within a regulation, it means you have a lot of control. And so the difficulty in doing all the work that TPUC would require us also gives us a rock solid, warm and fuzzy feeling going forward. Doesn't matter what board's sitting here, Mike. As you said, I can't speak for future boards, and you shouldn't. But as residents, we need to think about that. future boards. We might have this different situation 10 years from now, and I don't want to go through that when I'm 84. If you do the math, that means I'm 74. All right? I like math. So
We'll
anyway.
still need you, we'll still feed you, even though it's 84 instead of 64.
Okay. Mr. President, I'd ask for 4 or 5 seconds to be put back on this. Is that how this works? Okay, I saw that on TV at Washington, in Washington. I don't want to be like that. But my point is this, is that restrictions, yes, cost you money. They also cost you time. They also are very difficult hurdles. But the reason they're in place is to give you that 100% warm and fuzzy feeling that you are being taken care of and that you are protected. And so that's where we want to go down the road, Mr. Walker. We want to be protected. We don't want to go through this 2 years or 4 years or 5 years again from now. I just don't want to do that. It was difficult enough.
That's a very good point. The protection that you will get from TBOR will not be as all-inclusive as the protection that you would get from the Public Utility Commission. But I really haven't explored the cost of what utility regulation by the commission would mean. Yes, you would pay $32,000 to $40,000 every year, but just to file a rate case, first of all, it takes 6 months. The consumer advocate is a party to the case. Let's see, a company, a private utility called Limestone filed a rate case last year. They have fewer customers than Teleco Village, but their customers were spread out in a lot of different places around the state, and that made it complicated. I hate to tell you, they asked for $1 million in rate increases. They only got half of that. They spent more on lawyers than they ended up getting in rate increases. Believe it or not, their legal bills were nearly $1 million. I mean, it's hard to get across how much it would cost to have a big rate case. It's kind of like a big court trial involving a complicated corporate issue. And I mean, for example, I think the current board, they look at their expenses every year and they raise rates every year based on what their expenses are. To do that under commission regulation, you'd have to file a rate case every year. You would literally be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on rate cases. And yes, you would have all-encompassing protection, but at a hell of a cost. All I can suggest is go talk to Doug. Ask him how much it costs Louisville to be regulated by the Kentucky Public Service Commission. I mean, anyone who has an experience with the State Public Utility Commission as an investor on utility, I think can tell you, yeah, it's great protection for customers, but boy, it costs a lot. And the customers end up paying for it. I'll shut up now.
All right, Mike, we have a couple more questions and comments online. So David Gillum asked, what is the budget for this and what part of the budget are these legal fees coming from and how much will this process cost?
We have legal funds budgeted in the water sewer fund in the amount of, if I'm recalling correctly, $60,000. Presently, I think we've encumbered something in the neighborhood of, I'm guessing, $30,000 by Mr. Walker's research, and the use of a lobbyist, if the board so desires to by resolution, approve the private act. And there was something else asked. I don't remember what the last question was, or maybe I answered it all.
I pretty much answered it all.
Okay.
All right, so Linda asked pretty much the same, is what is the estimated cost for this? I think that's answered. And then Brian Weatherington asked, should we have inspections tied to the law if the system fails an annual inspection? I guess that's already kind of TDEC.
Yeah, TDEC.
TDEC already does our inspections, right? Yeah.
By the
And
way,
then-
we just recently had a TDEC inspection. Out of 421 inspection points, we scored 100%. So your Public Works Department is doing a great job.
All right,
I
Chris,
don't know if I should also mention that, Mike and Kevin browbeat me into giving a 30% reduction on my hourly rate.
thank you for your service. No. All right. Couple more questions. Statement from Chris Hofer. God bless America. Tellico Village property owners protection is coming. And then also from him, oh, never mind. He asked about another question. He hoped it got answered, which Matt answered. And then couldn't LUB and TAS, this is by Linda Garza, provide additional insight on the cost to be regulated by TPUC versus the TN board?
I'm meeting with LUB on Thursday. I've already met with TAS, and they pretty much supported Henry's space. If you put a rate together that is easily approved, it goes minimally. If it's contested because they think that you're gouging, you could spend $500,000 on Henry and still not get what you asked for.
I like that.
All right, Henry, there's another reduction rate.
One last question from Linda Garza. She said, when will we know what the direction the village is heading on this, and when does the board plan to vote or move forward on this?
We're going to vote on it tomorrow, but we wanted to bring it before you today and get some of your input.
Mike, can I add one thing to that? It's gratifying for us. A lot of us share the viewpoints of pretty much all that have been expressed, and it's gratifying to us to hear support from the community for what seems like a good way to go that will get us regulatory protection permanently, but without onerous cost. It would be very helpful if all of you who like this direction would email Lowell Russell and tell him that. As you must know, if you know anything about the legislature, he's crucial, to getting an act passed. He's, in my personal opinion, the very best legislator at any level that I've ever seen. He listens to us. And it's also not a secret. He's been burned before on last-minute private act things from, I'll just say, previous management and leave it there. One thing he told us he needed to hear is for the board to adopt this resolution and, officially say Tellico Village would like to go this way. But it will matter to him to hear from all of you. Now, if you're against it, tell him that. But do email him. It will help.
Before you get up there for a second, just also Senator McNally would be helpful. Hit them both because those are our two representatives, and that's who will be introducing the legislation on both sides of the House.
Mike, when we link this in the gram today, we'll provide their contact information.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mark. We got another Mark.
Mark Segala. Now, and thank you, Mr. Walker, for getting involved. As you know, I actively supported 5 of you for this kind of reform. Ironically, I voted for all members of the board that were duly elected by the property owners. You didn't create this atmosphere, Mr. Walker. They didn't create it, but you can see there's a lot of villagers who have been terribly burned, and they're looking for whatever guarantees they can to not have to visit this in the future. I don't expect 100%, but if we could get as many safeguards built into this private legislation, everyone here would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Seeing no other commenters, I'll entertain. Do I need a motion to adjourn? Because it's a town hall. I would like to thank everybody for your participation, for your politeness in a contentious issue, and for your input in helping guide the board going forward. Please take this. Thank you. Thank you. As mentioned before, please email Lowell and Randy McNally and let them know whether you support this or not, but make sure your voices are heard. Thank you. We're done.